The woman felt trapped, as if confined behind a deteriorating barrier every time she was alone in her house. Her spouse had left for a business trip that would last several weeks. She wrestled with feelings of isolation and the quietness of her thoughts. Everything in the house, and everything that was absent, amplified her distress. Her husband's work had required him to travel for years. But this time, the separation felt different. Usually, she could accept the temporary nature of his absence and adjust. But now, there was an emptiness, a profound, unbearable void, like a silent cry. She had always felt this emptiness when her husband was away, but she had managed to push it aside. Tonight, however, this void was more intense than ever. The feeling of being lost within herself was as if a massive boulder had settled inside her, and nothing could bring her comfort. The walls of the house, which once provided a sense of security, now felt like a dark, cold prison. The night outside, as dark as it was, seemed to permeate the house. The woman was forced to confront her loneliness for hours, her hands remaining empty, with only the faint glow of the TV accompanying her. Her husband, though far away and possibly struggling with his own work challenges, was constantly on her mind. While he was in a different world, she wondered how much of that world felt like it belonged to her. Loneliness seeped into her, turning her thoughts upside down. She realized that nothing was the same anymore. But then, there was Buddy, breaking through her loneliness. Buddy, a German shepherd, always approached her with his loyal, trusting eyes. His gaze was so faithful that it could comfort her, yet it also drew her into a dark void. His presence gave her a sense of trust, but also intensified her feelings of isolation. She was not alone, but the feeling of being alone had permeated every corner of her being, like a looming threat. Left to her own devices, she felt both fear and a strange sense of peace. When her husband was home, the emotional voids would surface, but the comfort he provided would soothe her soul, even if just a little. Alone with Buddy, everything became more complicated. His gaze added weight to every emptiness she felt, touching her deeply. There was a depth in his stare, as if those eyes understood something within her soul. Buddy, ever faithful, tried to stay close to her. Sometimes she found this annoying. Other times she found comfort in the security his devoted eyes provided. However, that comfort felt fleeting. For a moment, as their eyes met, she saw something in Buddy's gaze, a depth that seemed to reveal more. With every step Buddy took toward her, an inexplicable restlessness rose within her, not just from his look, but from every gesture of his body. She took a sip of wine, questioning her own decisions. Buddy wasn't just offering her physical comfort. He was providing an emotional connection. But this connection brought something darker than she had ever felt before. Did Buddy's loyalty actually trap her in some way? She paused, lost in these thoughts. Buddy sat in the corner of the room, his loyal eyes fixed on her. His gaze seemed to carry meaning, as if he were looking into her soul. She could feel every movement, every glance of Buddy's so clearly. For a moment, something shifted. While she felt safe, she also realized she was in some sort of danger. Buddy's loyalty had earned her trust, but it was also pushing boundaries she couldn't ignore. She couldn't tear her eyes away from Buddy sitting in the corner. In that moment, she had to confront her loneliness and fears. The emptiness inside her grew, and Buddy's presence somehow intensified that void. Taking another sip of wine, She let these thoughts swirl in her mind. As she turned her head, Buddy's eyes, like two beacons, penetrated her soul. She was walking a thin line between trust and fear, tangled in a path where loneliness intertwined with both. She felt a mystical bond with Buddy, oscillating between security and fear every second. There was a sense of both safety and danger. He leaned on her with unwavering honesty, attracting her considerable attention. As she poured the last of the wine into her glass, she covered her silence again. The old clock ticked away, marking the rhythm of her thoughts. Her husband had been traveling for work for years, but this time he seemed distant. The liquor brought temporary relief, but everything else remained unchanged. He stayed beside her, but the emptiness inside her seemed to grow by the second. Stroking Buddy's head, she suddenly got lost in thought. Why was her husband so far away? She wanted everything to continue as it always had, but something felt different. Her husband had been avoiding the demands of his work for a long time, but what she was feeling was taking on a new form each day. The wine's effect began to show, and a vague unease rose in her mind. Being alone in this house, which she had always shared with her husband, held a different meaning now. Perhaps this was the moment when feelings she had unconsciously suppressed for years were surfacing. When she looked into Buddy's usual loyal eyes, the tension inside her intensified. He was just a dog, but in that moment, there was something in his gaze. She felt compelled to search for meaning in them. Suddenly, the feeling inside her began to take on a new form. She was walking the fine line between fear and unease. "What do you feel, Buddy?" she whispered, though she knew she didn't want the answer. Buddy was just a dog, but at the same time, he could see her loneliness in her dark world. She was always scared, unable to fully trust Buddy. She thought of the times Buddy had been urging her with his gaze, never turning away even once. He was into her soul to the very core. For a fatal moment, she wished she could read his unspoken thoughts. It was strange to think about a dog whose gaze had left the most indelible mark on her. A chill spread through her heart. Almost unable to stop looking at Buddy, she reached out again for her wineglass. The information in Buddy's eyes, whatever it was, floated like an island. She found herself oscillating between trust and fear, trying to decipher that information from his eyes. There seemed to be no sound in the room. And then everything inside her was sucked in. Buddy stood in the middle of all the echoes within the house. An urge to drown every thought as quickly as she could caught up with her. She refilled her glass, paused for a moment, and then decided to lose herself in her thoughts. The loyalty in Buddy's eyes was leading her down a path she felt confined in. That damn dog stood right in the middle of that confining space. In an instant, her mind wandered to her husband. When would he come back and bring warmth into the house? But these were not the only thoughts in her head. Maybe nothing would have been different if her husband were here. But for now, they found themselves in a time when all was absent and different. She had always felt that something was missing. But now, deep down inside, there was a sense of something more. She considered Buddy as much as everything was precariously balanced, almost ineffable. A huge, scary question swirled in her brain. Even the wine seemed to make her relaxed at first, but dark thoughts found their free play. Having another sip, she turned foggy above her brainwaves. She made a step toward Buddy, yet somehow this loss was parallel with something gained inside her heart. An unseen thread formed in her insides, an idea of something. But what? This strange emotion, loneliness, fear. She took another step nearer and bent toward Buddy. In an instant, she suddenly noticed something else in the room. No matter how strongly she felt something was slipping out of her control, with a sip of wine, something in her heart broke. Buddy's eyes carried a meaning she had never felt before. At this moment, all the uneasiness in the house flowed toward her. The gaze of a dog was pushing the inner boundaries of the woman to yield to his loyalty or to these mysterious feelings. Every time she felt Buddy's warm breath, a shiver ran through her body. Everything seemed to slip away. Her mind, clouded with wine, was full of complex thoughts. In that moment, she could feel that something had broken, that another step had been taken. She wanted to find peace in Buddy's eyes, but there was something else there. An intensity, a feeling that things were deeper than she had previously realized. He was just a dog. But why did she feel this emotion so intensely? Suddenly, as she felt her hand on Buddy's head, her dark thoughts became even more intense. Did this touch mean something? Or was it just the loyal touch of a dog? Or was it something else? She took a deep breath and briefly closed her eyes. The fear of losing herself became clearer in her wine-addled mind, yet at the same time, Buddy's warm gaze seemed to remind her of something. The woman, lost in loneliness, thought for a moment that she wasn't alone, but her feelings were pushing her towards something more. As she walked around Buddy, she paused. The emptiness inside her echoed in her wine-clouded mind. She felt as though she were at a dead end. Everything had become too fast, too complicated. Her husband was gone, but at that moment, Buddy seemed to have taken his place somehow. The curiosity that arose inside her transformed into something different. In those eyes, Buddy was offering her a closeness she had never felt before. He was just a dog, but there was something in his gaze. The woman moved even closer to Buddy, his loyalty, his trust. But the emotional emptiness inside her was pushing her to want more. For a moment, she thought of her husband, of their relationship. The bond between them had always been deep and friendly. But at that moment, there was something lacking in that bond. When her husband wasn't there, Buddy's presence made her feel a kind of trust, but it felt different. Yet that trust lacked depth. As she stroked Buddy's head, she reflected on everything. The emptiness inside her only brought more confusion. The wine had made everything more uncertain. For a short time, she thought about her husband, about their relationship. The relationship between them was always deep and friendly. But at that time, there was nothing in that bond. In the absence of her husband, she had a belief in Buddy, but it was unique. However, there was no deep confidence in him. When she embraced Buddy's head, she thought about everything, the inside of whom he had brought great doubts. The wine had done everything more than hands. Just as a criminal saw a woman's eyes, so there was something in that eye. That was when he took hold of his fear. What happened? Why was it so impressive? Why did he feel that way from the eyes of the dogs? He was lost in his fears and his joy to see things. The loneliness in him grew. Something felt like nothing. The woman was solemn at that time. There was a lame in Mr. Bad's part. The loneliness was not just part of his emotions. He also had a picture of his inability to control his fears, which were growing every minute. That woman felt she had been seriously involved in Buddy at that time. Silence and loneliness joined him in his mind. Her husband was far away, but Buddy was there. However, they could not be sure. The woman took another step. He never forgot the evil one at that point. Time seemed to be hindered, and everything seemed to be near, like it was coming. What was this feeling? Fear, desire, cleanliness. For a moment, everything in the woman's mind became a blur. Why was she feeling this way? What was happening? Why could a dog affect her so much? She wanted to drink more, but this time she could feel her heart racing instead of the wine. Every glance, every movement from Buddy was pulling her into a dead end. Did she want to lose herself? Loneliness had never felt so strong before. This was an emotion she had never expected. The woman never took her eyes off Buddy's. In that moment, she thought everything would reshape. The uncertainty she felt inside was making it harder to take another step. Yet she still carried the desire for things to slip out of control. Finding such depth in the eyes of a dog was deepening the emotional chaos inside her. She felt like she couldn't hold herself back. At that point, she realized that everything was slipping away. The tension in her relationship with Buddy had been building over time. She was restless, her heart racing with fear and sexual tension. Buddy's presence gave her comfort, but at the same time, it created a deep feeling of emptiness inside her. She thought there was a direction, a desire in his loyal gaze. This was both frightening and alluring, putting her in a kind of dilemma. On one hand, Buddy's loyalty and unconditional love gave her peace. On the other hand, this deep connection triggered her uncertainties and fears. During the worst moments of loneliness, Buddy's every move became more defined. Where he went, she followed. His gaze pressed her into draining her whole being into one deep pit of glad trials of rising desperation. These very friendships, this proximity, which she drew, gave her safety, yet challenged her very existence. By day, she would run from that surface sun and into Buddy's company. But nighttime solitude would stretch till unbearably agonizing ascension. Sometimes this desire reflected back in Buddy's eyes, sparking the worst of her longing, terrifying yet eyebrow-raising. Who am I? What do I desire? What are my boundaries? He has become my best friend and simultaneously a challenge to my limits. His loyalty, a sanctuary for this soul of mine, pressing its hand deeper and deeper into my very soul with each passing moment. In my everyday life, Buddy's following me sometimes feels like a relief. Other times, it feels like a form of pressure. At home, on the street, at the park, he was always with me. This led me to question my sense of freedom. Was I free, or had a kind of dependency developed with Buddy's love? These thoughts keep me awake at night and pull me into constant inner conflict. During the day, every moment spent with him feels like I'm being drawn deeper into a more complex emotional journey. This journey forces me to look inward, to define my emotions and desires more clearly. Buddy's love sometimes feels like a refuge, sometimes like a labyrinth. In this labyrinth, with each step I take, I discover my emotional boundaries and sometimes experience the thrill of crossing those boundaries. I see my relationship with Buddy as more exclusive than between a human and a dog, as there grows an awareness of the inner journey, an initiation, and I have been emotionally initiated. Having Buddy simply took over a space within me, allowing me to understand what contradictions reside within myself. And as I accept them, this layered relationship works wonders for the journey to myself. As each time it sends me a bit closer to my exterior delimitations and unlimited potential, so defenseless on my part. Buddy soon broke open the softest parts of me, where I keep the darkest fears and desires hidden from myself, revealing them to me. The time spent with Buddy is often in play, while others seem purely like a fight. And sometimes just the unbroken, silent gaze of my dog, so openly loyal and loving, brings me peace during my lowest moments. Those looks bear me witness and make me face up to myself every morning. The gaze from Buddy is as though casting a haze over the day ahead of me. His presence makes me feel stronger, while a shadow falls on me throughout each act of his. There is unity in our souls with me and Buddy, feeling against rather than for each other. Every movement of Buddy and every look fired at me turn up life's roller coaster of emotions. A sea of questions or dilemmas, giving way sometimes to deeper thoughts, but staying always inside. So I must miss many simple pleasures of that moment. This journey with Buddy pushes me to reconsider what it means to be human, to love, to connect, and to be independent. Every moment with him is a learning opportunity, a process of growth. In this process, sometimes I lose myself, other times I find myself. Buddy's love takes me beyond my own limits. Through this love, I'm beginning to understand both myself and the world more clearly. It was midnight. Some of my friends had come to see me a few hours earlier because I was alone in the house, and I got drunk. Having stayed up all night drinking, I finally retired to my bed to sleep. I was alone except for Max. Max, my dog, usually slept quite comfortably at night, but that night was different. It took a few seconds to orient myself when I opened my eyes, as my vision was still hazy, and the remnants of the alcohol still spun my head. Lying comfortably in bed, I noticed something in the darkness of the room. There was movement. At first, I had to focus with my eyes because everything appeared blurry and out of focus. But by the time I comprehended what was going on, I saw Max standing in the corner of the room, staring at me intently. My dog, who never made a peep throughout the night, was acting differently as he slowly started to approach me. I tried to get up, but my body was moving slower than usual, due to the drunkenness still caught in my system. Max kept his stare on me, not breaking the gaze. An unease came upon my chest in that moment. I knew something was wrong. Max had something in his eyes, but I couldn't make out what it was. His eyes were on me, as if he wanted to say something. Maybe I shouldn't have given it too much thought, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Max, usually quiet and in control, now gave me his full attention as he approached. I could feel his breath on my skin, and his eyes hardened as if he was trying to tell me something. His behavior was not normal, and I was filled with a deep sense of depression. I'm not sure what's going on, but I know something very special is happening tonight. My dog gently pressed his nose to my shoulder and patted me gently. All his actions began to feel even more strange. The relief I felt grew stronger with each passing moment. But there was something else. Sometimes the bond between us was stronger than usual. It was so amazing that I didn't even want to question if everything was normal. Was Max approaching me this way and trying to get my attention? Or was something else going on? Looking around, my eyes widened again. I was so drunk it was all like a dream. But Max being there told me something. There was a sense of danger, a sense that something was wrong. I thought to myself for a moment. It was just yesterday, only yesterday, but there is still a deep feeling within me. I knew something was missing. There was meaning in Max's eyes, something trying to tell me something. But what is it? A feeling of discomfort was growing within me. At first, I didn't even know how long Max had been staring at me. My mind was a mess. but somehow I had to focus on it. What should I do when I'm around him? In his eyes, he seemed to make a conscious effort to communicate with me. At that moment, I realized that something was wrong, but I still needed to understand what it is. That night, I realized that things had changed. It will be even more strange than this. I never understood what Max was trying to say. But something is definitely different tonight. It was too special and too strange to be normal. Max's eyes looked at me, looking at my every move. The instincts deep within me became more and more clear that he was trying to say something. At that moment, a feeling of discomfort rose from the depths of my confused mind and mixed with the alcohol that remains. The uneasiness within me grew stronger. I knew something wasn't right, but I feel like I can't fix it. My dog never once looked away from my unsteady gaze as he approached. It looked like he wanted to say something, but I don't understand. He was watching me, following his steady but penetrating gaze with every single step. The strange feeling that I was beginning to experience couldn't be fought anymore. It really felt like the innermost things I was trying to scour meant no harm against the status quo and whatever conflict is raging inside me. But something definitely felt different. The more Max advanced closer to me, the closer I followed him with my eyes. Just a few steps separated us from being so very close, and as he brought his nose even closer to my face, there was a strange discomfort in this close distance. Max's nose was almost touching my face. Why was he so careful? Why did he have to act like that? It felt like he had something to say, but I never understood it. My mind was entangled in many complicated thoughts, somewhere between drunkenness and comfort. Everything was starting to feel strange to me, slowly but sharply. For a moment, I thought he was about to whisper something to me. I found him unintentionally locked in my endow. His gaze was so intense that I swung between fear and curiosity. Max tilted his head and withdrew. That movement made me realize that something else was even stranger. Well, from then on, I started to feel more weird. Those eyes, those looks, those strange actions. Was there a meaning to them? Or was it merely my alcohol-aided mind making everything appear more important? I did not know what Max had in his mind right then, yet something felt uneasy inside me. I needed to see what was going up. I sipped after Max, and in that moment, there was a sudden silence echoing in the other rooms of the house. I pressed my forehead against the chilled glass of the window. It seemed to clarify my mind. Max moved from the lounge toward another room. I was quick behind him. That felt like an instinct I couldn't resist. As I continued to follow Max, I was determined to know what was going on. He knew what was up. I could tell. Was it anything possible for a dog to know? Or was it that just being uneasy was what made me think this way? A few seconds later, Max entered the bedroom. I rushed in behind him and checked the room, finding everything in order. But Max, standing there frozen, filled my comfort to the brim. I walked over slowly again and concentrated on his eyes. It felt like I had uncovered the great meaning hidden behind those eyes. A voice, rising from deep down, told me that those eyes were saying something only I could understand. Still, Max's gaze was full of doubts. At that moment, a wide chasm opened inside me. I had to push on and see what was going on. The stillness in the room only made my nerves worse. I felt chills crawling up my spine with every tear I took. I was knit together in confusion. I had to know why Max was acting in this way. What was he telling me with his eyes? But how would a dog relate something so immense? My mind has many questions. Why is he trying to get so close? I'm telling myself what's happening. Why is tonight different? And Max's eyes seem to have something to convey. But comprehension of this was extremely difficult. Every glance, every move appeared to lead towards something far larger and greater. And then, without warning, my body starts feeling a wave of restlessness. Why is he so sensitive? Why does his gaze lean toward me, as if his eyes were trying to tell me something? My drunkenness still lingers. An alcohol haze fogs my mind. But the serious expression in Max's eyes stands so crystal clear before my eyes. His eyes almost whispered something to me. There is not just fear or reactivity in those looks. Rather, there is something more. Something is being told to me. But what? These strange behaviors unnerve me. And the unease inside me grows bigger with each passing moment. I try to decipher the message Max is trying to convey every moment, but I still cannot figure it out. Max seems almost like a guide to show me the way, a sign of something. But I don't know what turn the path has taken. An intent expression in his eyes seems to converse something with me. It feels like every motion he makes speaks a language. Every look becomes a clue. Everything is getting out of hand tonight. Every gesture of Max, every gaze of his, seems a puzzle that should be solved, and I badly need the solution. It is as if there were a sign in his eyes, a path that he is showing me. A great sensation surges inside me. I need to follow him, but what am I supposed to follow? Where am I supposed to go? These questions haunt my mind like ghosts. Max tries to tell me something is different, but as I begin to see it differently, a fear also begins to take over. Everything has a deeper meaning tonight, and I'm doing my best to let it go. The expression in Max's eyes is so powerful that I can't put it into words. I think everything is much bigger and more complex. Max seems to be here to show something that night. I just feel it in my eyes. His every look is an internal warning telling me something is up. I still can't figure it out. But this unease just grows. There's something in his eyes. Max shows me the way. But which way should I go? What steps should I take? These are questions that touch my heart. Max has always been a quiet, happy dog, but tonight something feels different. He's giving me a message, guiding me in a way. Those eyes that look tell me something. It seems impossible to convey such a deep understanding through the dog's eyes at first. But I feel Max's gaze guiding me. His every movement seems to be a signal for me to take the next step. The malaise in Max has been transmitted to me. That night, I felt like everything made sense. But it was getting harder and harder to let go of that sense with each passing minute. Tonight, I feel like I just have to look Max in the eye and solve this mystery. As I tread to decipher the mysteries hidden in those visions, my curiosity and anxiety continued to grow. As I continued to follow the signals Max offers, I do my best to understand what made this night so different. And perhaps, when the privacy curtain was lifted a little more, everything will fall into place. And I will fully understand the message Max is trying to convey to me. But now I have to live in the moment, because Max's eyes showed me the way forward. When the night passes, I began to feel more deeply that there was something behind Max's approach to me. His eyes shone with a depth and significance that I had never seen before. That gleam made me feel invisible, like yesterday. In that moment, it felt like Max wanted to express something, but couldn't express it in words. Every movement the eyes make feels like a kind of signal. a kind of direction. There's definitely a message behind it. But what is it? Suddenly, I had an idea. Maybe Max is trying to tell me something. Maybe he's taking me somewhere. But the thought was quickly dispelled by wine and my confusion. Still, there was a feeling that Max's movements were not just ordinary dog behavior, but it is a symptom of something much bigger. I feel like tonight everything is different. Max walked around the room, was quiet for a while. Every action was extremely deliberate. He took a step, then backed up and came back to me. It's like he stares at me all the time and shadows every move I make. It is not merely a careful glance. It develops into a complete sort of mutual understanding. At that time, there's a clear fog forming up for me. At such times, Max wants to tell me something, but I still have no idea what it is. There are hidden elements in every glance. That strange gleam carries a message in his eyes. His previously focused, laser-like eyes were never so tightly focused. Not fear, but searching for meaning. I still have my share of the fear inside me, but I have a bit of trust too. Max helps me find the way, like a light for me. But I still don't know what it is. I am chasing what I'm trying to understand. Some animals sometimes feel much more than humans. Perhaps tonight, Max just wants to show me something. Hours pass, and strange behavior becomes more pronounced every minute. He approaches me. Then it's as if for a brief moment he realizes something. He slowly tilts his head and deepens his stare. At that moment, within me, a flame ignites. It is as though what Max is showing me is an internal warning. I can't get my thoughts to slow down with my growing questions. What does he want? Where is this leading? What is different tonight? Max's gaze never moves from me this time. With not fear is in his gaze. What I see in his eyes is something uneased, that something is not being solved. Something has to be revealed which I haven't seen before. It feels as though Max, far from being just another dog, is more like a teacher, an instructor, a guide. With the night passing, the troubled air around me has continued to intensify. Each move, each step by Max makes me even more so. Soon enough, Max settles into the corner and goes still, keeping his eyes trained on me. Once he was just a companion. Now he combined wise counsel with a sense of spiritual closeness. I never thought a dog could have such a profundity of meaning, but I can now see that Max was showing me the way with that stare. For a brief second, something stirred secretly inside me. Max's eyes were like a key, like a code to be cracked. With the passage of time, the tumbling mists inside me begin to lift. Max offers me not only fear or anxiety, but also a sense of calm, that of guidance. Each of his movements takes me a step closer to him. In that moment, Max certainly had his reason to show me something. But it will take time before I can even scratch the depth of meaning Max's eyes held. That deep gaze till the end of the night. I felt he was trying to convey something, but I couldn't make sense of it then. As I reminisce about that night, I wonder whether I'll fathom the real reasons he gravitated toward me so closely. Why those eyes were full of such meaning. Perhaps one day, Max's lock code imparted to me that night will unfold some clarity, and when that time comes, when I truly understand the message Max imparted, I'll know more precisely why everything did occur the way it did. Morning dawns, though the night has passed. I find my mind is still dealing with Max's reaction. It brings some solace to recall that very moment it all started. That night will always be that memory, wherein Max made it clear to me of something I did not know. yet somehow new in the depth of my soul. That night, all was brought into light, and I could start to understand why Max was so keenly by my side and what he made me feel. In the expression in his eyes, it seemed to be something important, and he wanted to tell me. Behind all that weird behavior, there was a message, and I tried to make it out. Everything Max did seemed to indicate that something far greater and much more important was going on. I was doing everything in my power to uncover the secret behind this strange event. Max's eyes seemed to be showing me a path, urging me to follow his unusual actions, pulled me into a whirlwind of curiosity and anxiety. The expression in his eyes told of something much greater, something he was trying to convey. That night, everything got even more complicated and incomprehensible. Everything Max did showed he was doing something big and meaningful. I'll try my best to unveil the mystery behind this phenomenon. Max's eyes seemed to be pointing at me, and I felt compelled to follow his strange behavior filled me with deep joy and anxiety. The look in his eyes made it clear that something very important was going on, something he was trying to communicate. Everything became harder and harder to understand that night. Max's every movement indicated that something bigger and more important was at play. I was doing my best to uncover the mystery behind this phenomenon. Max's eyes seemed to be pointing in my direction, urging me to follow. His unusual demeanor pulled me into a whirlwind of excitement and anxiety. His expression indicated that something very important was going on, something he was trying to communicate. Everything became harder and harder to understand that night. Every move Max made seemed to signal something bigger and more important that was unfolding around me. I was doing everything I could to uncover the mystery behind this strange phenomenon, but the answers seemed just out of reach. Max's eyes seemed to guide me, compelling me to follow him as if he was leading me towards something I was meant to understand. In the morning, even though I tried to forget the intensity of the night, Max's behavior stayed with me, lingering in my mind like a persistent puzzle. Remembering the moment when it all started gave me a small sense of comfort, like a threat of understanding. Through the chaos that night, Max had shown me something I hadn't intended to understand, yet deep down, I knew it was important. As the night unfolded, everything was gradually revealed. I began to comprehend why Max had been so determinedly by my side, why his presence was so powerful and profound. The expression in his eyes indicated something incredibly important, a silent communication that transcended words. He wasn't just a pet. He was trying to convey a message hidden within his strange behavior. There was something bigger and more meaningful behind it all. A purpose, a grand plan. Every movement Max made seemed to point toward a larger truth. A truth that I was on the brink of understanding yet couldn't fully grasp. It was as though his eyes had become my guides, showing me a path I was meant to follow. His gaze wasn't just a look, it was a compass, a silent invitation to move forward. The unease and curiosity I felt were intertwined, as though each passing moment was a step closer to an answer, but one that remained elusive and without warning. It was all over. Max's antics, his behavior, had swept me into a whirlwind of confusion and uncertainty. But when I looked back, I realized there had been a reason behind everything. Max wasn't just a dog. He had been an unseen guide, leading me towards something greater than I could have imagined. His actions had subtly illuminated a truth, not just about the world around me, but about myself and my own understanding. The answers didn't always come in the ways I expected, but when they did, they were far more profound than I could have imagined. It was as if fate had guided me to this realization. And even though Max's peculiar behavior had initially left me frustrated, in the end, it led me to something truly life-changing.